Hi guys, and welcome to Journeyman episode number 24. In this episode I make all kinds of things and fix things for my Atlas horizontal mill restoration. If you want to see how I did that and what I did, stick around. When I took this Atlas mill apart, I had no idea that there were some missing parts and some parts that were homemade. Well, now I have to make a missing part. The dimensions that I have on that drawing that I made was just looking at people's videos and kind of scaling it to what they had and trying to make it fit from there. This is just some of that hot rolled metal that you get at Lowe's, and it was the right dimension, so I decided to, face it off, polish it up, and make the very first bushing out of it. Initially I had planned on just drilling it, but then I decided why not bore it and get it closer to a perfect size. And now over to my parting tool. I cut it a little bit longer than it's supposed to be so I could get it back chucked up and then faced off to the proper length. I'm just shooting for a nominal dimension here, but I still want to keep it fairly accurate. One of the things I tend to do is to go too fast and tend up overshooting the dimension, so I'm taking my time and sneaking up on this. And there's the fit I'm looking for. So I took the part out, measured it precisely, and figured out how many thousandths need to be taken off. And now it's time to carefully take off the sharp corners on the inside and outside, and the part's done. And here she is, shiny and on size. Now this next part had a homemade fix from the previous owner, and I take a look at this parts diagram and try to make sense out of it. And I see that they just brazed a bushing into place, and now I'm going to make a mandrel so that I can get this gear and bushing tight on this mandrel so that I can machine off the brazing. I'm looking for a pretty snug fit so that when I get the chuck
tighten down onto it, that everything stays secure. I'm such an optimist. I start with this parting tool, but I end up taking it over to my other parting tool, my saw. Turns out it's a real snug fit, just like I'm looking for, and I'm going to get her chucked up and see if we can get that braze off of there. Once I get it in the chuck, I stuck it in and out of there several times, moving it around, just to make sure it was running dead true.
Slowed this down because I'm scared that when it breaks loose, it might swing around and break itself.
And now I just keep making several small little cuts until I break through.
Alright, I know the wells are, or the brazes are gone. Now I just gotta try to get that out of there now. Well, what do you know, I just went and just kind of banged it a couple times and there it's coming out. So we'll get that bushing out of there. Well, the first thing I notice is they are the same height, but I don't understand why these things had grooves in them and those holes. So now we got to make sure that we can get this into there. I mean, 1 inch 2 thou. And that's about 1 inch 1 thou. So that's actually good news. That'll press in there with a little heat and a little cooling. So yeah, a little heat and a little cooling, we should be able to get those to fit.
Now the bushing is in the freezer while I heat up the gear, and now I'm going to press them together. Now that gear and bushing I got in the freezer, and now I'm heating up the pulley part, and then I have to press those two together. Now these have to mesh in there a certain way, and I forgot about that. I am so focused on doing this quickly, getting it in there straight, not raking it. I forgot about the little timing issue on there where there are kind of like little gear type things that have to mesh, and I totally forgot about it. So I went and got some gloves because that part is really hot and the other one's cold, and I think that my Herculean strength can get it apart. I'm sadly mistaken.
Oh, I messed up, guys. I got the things not lined up right, so I got to pull that off. Start all over.
Actually, I had to get some aluminum and press that out.
Okay. There you go. Keep on going. Keep on going.
So I solicit the help of my son, and he does the hard work.
It's not like tough.
Nope, undo it. All right.
Is it hot or cold?
Yes.
I had no idea how I was going to hold this, but then I thought, why not chuck it up in the forge and give it a shot?
That's running pretty true.
Now you've only seen a couple of seconds of it, but it took me a long time of just taking my time to get that to run true. Now I'm being real careful because there's so little material that needs to come out of here. I'm taking my time and just a couple thou at a time. I mean, it'll fit on the shaft, but I have to force it on, so just barely taking out a little bit. I hit it one more time after this and got it to fit like I wanted it to. This is yet another part that I didn't even know was missing until I started putting it back together. It's called the collar. And again, I'm just using video to try to scale it to get dimensions.
Alright, now that I got that drilled out, I'm going to head over to the cutoff tool. Alright. There she goes.
I machined this one exactly like the other one. Now here I just need to make a small spacer to make a couple of parts fit better together.
I rigged up this little thing here just from something else I had from making fidget spinners. I'm going to take and make this washer a little bit smaller.
Now luckily I have a washer that has the correct inner diameter. I just need to bring down the outer diameter. As soon as I see this off the mandrel, I realize I'm going to have to redo it. It's just not precise at all.
I'd have to do that again. Let's see.
Yeah, with me just centering that thing up by eye, it just wasn't precise enough. So I make a mandrel to make that washer fit on there real tight and redo the thing. Yes, it takes a lot more time to do it right. Now that I have it drill and tap that I can tighten it down, now it's time to make the register where the washer will register up onto to be tight. I was trying to avoid all these little steps, and that's why I tried it the quick way first, and now I'm doing it the right way.
So this is what we made. Got to clean up the burrs and see if it works. Alright, that's what we got now.
Now I'm lubing up this little spacer, and all it is to give me a couple of more threads that I can engage the nut on at the end to tighten it down, and it worked out perfectly.
You kind of see where the spacer is right there. Just taking up about 3/16 of an inch or so. That just may have fixed it, ladies and germs. Alright guys, this is the very first time using a steady rest. So experts out there, please be kind. Because I don't know what I'm doing here. But what I think the best way to do this is to get this thing in the chuck, and while it's close in, try to get this thing set. And then I'll take it off and put it back at the back. And that should kind of center it up. I'm going to take it till it barely touches right there. And then lock that one. we go. Tighten that one. Oil on there. And let's turn this baby on and see what we get.
With this size piece, I would much rather use my South Bend lathe, but I just don't have a steady rest for it. And later on I find out it's easier to put a dial indicator on the back and get it dialed in back there with the steady rest. Now to make the M1-26 rubber spacer.
Well, I got on McMaster-Carr and got some oil resistant rubber tube, trying to make those little rubber things. This is the size it has to be to fit down in there, so what I did was grab one of the long 1/4 20 bolts, and chuck that up in the lathe and get this turned down to that diameter.
I started machining it with high-speed steel and thought, why not try carbide?
Okay, carbide is not the thing. Go back to high speed.
I just destroyed that end of it, so I flip it around and start all over from the other side. And all I could take was like 5/1000ths cut, because if you did more than that, it just didn't work. It would just get real grabby. And at the end here, I take a little emery paper on that just to make everything nice and smooth.
Well, let's go see if it fits. I think it will. Well, and here's the little rubber, and it fits perfectly down in there. So now what I need to do is cut these off to length and cut them like 2/3 of them off in the vertical. Show you what I mean by that. Okay, so this is how this thing goes. There's a spot for the square nut to go into. Then the rubber piece goes on here, and you have to cut it. Then this part, then a spacer, and then the cap. This is broken. I'd like to find some more, but right now I have to use that. So just looking at people's pictures, this piece of black rubber is about 2/3 the length of these things. So what I'm going to do is go cut this off about 2/3. We'll get it on there, and then we'll cut down that way. Well, check that out. That's just eyeballing it on the lathe. I took it on there, had it still on the mandrel, and just kind of let the knife slowly roll down into it, cut them off. So they're nice, clean cuts. And the next cut will be this way. So I need to figure out how to do a nice level cut across there. And that one might be just an eyeball and just go down it like that. That's probably what I'm going to have to do. Now, from all the pictures I've seen, there's a couple of threads that show, so that means that I'll have to cut it across the hole. So I hope this is good enough to do this. Okay, looked like it cut out pretty good. Now let's see, it should go on here like this. Like this, and when it squeezes it should conform and clamp down that thingamabobby. Let's do the other one. Alright, I think that's got it, ladies and germs.
For those of you who have watched this whole series, you remember it took me several weeks to get this thing out. And look how easily it just slides in. But that's the way it's supposed to be. It had gotten stuck in there, and here's a new one. There are actually two of these overarm locks that are on this thing. I only have one of them in there right now, and with the one of them, it locks it down snug as a bug.
Okay guys, a couple of lessons learned. I keep learning the exact same lesson learned every single time of measure twice, cut once. I had to make one of the spacers 3 times. I thought I had it right and just undershot it by a little bit, which it gave me too much wiggle room and I didn't like that. So measure twice, cut once again. Also, when you're machining rubber, it will grab. So if you take a big cut, it's going to grab and try to wrap itself. So have a real sharp piece of high-speed steel and just take little light cuts. And mine worked out fine that way. Also, for steady rest, first time using a steady rest, I realized that you don't want to tighten it up real tight. If you can just get it up against it, it makes it work a lot better and not make so much noise and chatter. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next Journey to Journeyman.